Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Oya di Melo's Cinema Club. Today we are talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's one of my personal favorites. I enjoyed it growing up as a kid, and let's get right into it.
All right, I guess we're starting with initial thoughts. And I guess I'll go ahead and start with mine. This was also one of my favorite films growing up. It was like one of the few like pop culture things that I was actually allowed as a small child. Like Indiana Jones really does have a special place in my like pantheon of pop culture icons. Cause like that's what me and my brothers used to like play in the backyard. It was like we were Indiana Jones's kids. And like we'd run around having fake adventures. So it's always fun to return to this.
How old were you when you saw it for the first time?
Probably 7.
Oh, okay.
You know, like where it's like you're young enough for it to still be really scary, but like old enough to like try to like where you try to impress your dad, be like, oh yeah, this is blood, mild
Being,
peril.
yeah, being that it was an older movie, what did you think about the effects at the time, like the practical stunt work? What did you
It
think of
holds
all that?
up. It holds up. You know, there's a reason why I feel like this is such like there's a reason why like this has been imitated by so many filmmakers. You
Yeah.
know, there's been so many little iconic moments and like I feel like this movie was like kind of how we knew Hollywood was in its stride.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Like it like the timing of it all like this was when Hollywood really knew what they could do.
Yeah, that was like the first block, but like the string of blockbusters, like
Mm-hmm.
Jaws, Star Wars, and then this like 6 years later.
Yeah, totally. All right, and
Uh,
anyone else?
JP, what did you think about it?
Oh man, I gotta tell you, no, I like Raiders. It's funny because like it doesn't hold that place in my heart that Star Wars does. So I don't revisit this movie as often. So hearing it this time, watching it this time around, it's crazy how much stuff that they borrowed from Star Wars still into this movie. And we'll probably talk about it later if anyone else caught on to a few things that I think is very like not subtle at all.
Oh, really? Well, I
Yeah,
noticed the theme.
but all in all, like it's such it's such a nice Hollywood, a nice like childhood fucking popcorn movie. And the say like I have the same exact it's like God, there's a lot of death in this movie, a lot of PG rated, kind of like wow, you got away with that death, and my gosh, it's like just almost everything about the film is just so. This is absolute bias because I have my nostalgia glasses on, so I know I can't judge the movie properly because like it's fucking Indiana Jones. Like, come on. Like even Temple of Doom, which used to be the worst one, is pretty hokey. But it's just a fun adventure movie, and I don't know anyone who has like an actual qualm or like hate for the film.
Yeah, I agree. Um, it's not like really heavy-handed. It's not. You're not going to draw a lot of like political or philosophical things from it, but
I mean,
it's
Nazis
definitely.
are bad. That's a hot take, apparently.
What was it? What'd you say?
I said, well, apparently what I got from this movie was Nazis are bad, and apparently that's a hot take nowadays.
Oh, yeah, of course, right. Okay, so I stand corrected. But it's very simple in its message. Um, how about you, Jason? What'd you think? What's your first impressions of the movie?
Well, hey Isaac, what's going on, man? Um, so my first impressions of the movie, it takes me, I can't really watch it without thinking of like me as a little kid because that's the first time I've seen it, and it was one of those movies that was sort of always sort of on in the background, So I had sort of seen it before I ever saw it. So I can't tell you what age I saw this movie. Is what I'm telling you. Maybe fully at 10. I don't know. There's no telling when my brain processed the whole film. That's all. No. I will say this, man. Like this movie not only holds up, it reminded me why it's on like AFI's 100 Greatest American Films or whatever.
Mm.
Because it really is one of the best movies ever made. I mean, it's big, it's action packed. It was kind of, for me, it might even been like the turn of the action hero. You know what I mean? Like the action hero sort of took a turn with this movie, and it never looked back. Summer blockbuster action hero that didn't really exist before this thing.
Mm.
We never really had a action hero that were like they have a blockbuster movie in the summer and it aims for that. Now you get a ton of those every year. Um, it's a great adventure story. It feels like it's for kids, but there's a lot of drinking in this thing, which, that's my first impression. I never really saw that as a kid. A lot of alcohol. There's a lot of violence. There's a lot of graphic violence. Just people getting shot and their brains are getting blown out. It's like, but I want my kid to see that? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of harsh. But still, great film, man. What's his face? This is like prime level Harrison Ford,
Right.
This is Harrison Ford at like the peak of his powers, and it was great. It was absolutely stunning movie to realize again. Even though I've seen this thing probably 100 times, it's just, and it's great storytelling. It's compact,
Mhm.
It's compact. They don't waste a lot of of anything. It's just like get the story done. I think the movie's kind of short too. It's like 90 minutes, right?
Yeah, a little over. Yeah.
So it's just like get straight to it, have a great movie, and then it makes people want to see it like 5-6 times. And like Michaela said, there's a reason this thing has been parodied by everybody since the day it came out. I mean, the imagery alone is just iconic. We'll get into it, I'm sure, but the opening sequence me and Dino talked about, it's probably one of the best opening sequences of any movie ever.
Yeah.
Super iconic stuff.
So yeah,
that's my first impression.
Yeah, that's great. You can clearly see why this movie's been beloved throughout the decades, and why it holds such a special place in people's hearts. Dino, what were your first impressions?
yeah. Grew up watching it. My brother is 3 years older than me. Just turned 40 actually today. So
Oh, happy birthday to him!
yeah, and for many Halloweens he dressed as Indiana Jones. Actually had a legit leather whip, hat, everything. Just going to in Paraguay any freaking Western store, which I guess was just like, hey, you want to go get cattle stuff or horseback stuff. So yeah, so he dressed a bunch. I remember watching this. I don't know if I was 6, maybe I was younger, at El Centro Cultural Paraguayo Americano, the CCPA, the Cultural Center of Paraguay and America, basically. And they had, it wasn't like a legit movie theater screen. It was like a hallway, and they had a screen, and they had those old projectors. And by old, it was newer because it was the ones that basically had the 3 lenses or bulbs, like the green, red, and whatever, and that projected it. I don't know, that was before the digital projectors, but it was no longer film. And I remember watching that, and I don't know if it was like 40 or 80 of us in there, and I was sitting up front with my brother and I guess some of his buddies, and I made it. I made it up front there until the very end when the lid blows off, or they take the lid off, and then the ghosts are coming and the melting, and I had to run into the back of the room and sit with my mom, because that Jason brought up of the people being murked left and right and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, yeah, I was in it with it until like that moment. I was like, oh, it's scary. So yeah, So I grew up loving it, all the movies, and even watched some of the young Indiana Jones. Like was always kind of like Michaela was also saying, playing outdoors, as Indiana Jones, trying to throw the whip. Did my brother and I hit each other with a whip by accident at some point, and we got the whip taken away? And it's like you're gonna shoot your eye out with it. It's like don't play with the whip because you're gonna whip each other with it, and we did. So that's definitely something that happened. So yeah, what I was just thinking. That oh man, there's so much I want to say. Uh, there's something about nostalgia, and we're talking about how many different things have taken away from this movie. But and we mentioned Jaws and mentioned Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and I was like, well, especially Star Wars and Indiana Jones was kind of love letters to George Lucas and Spielberg's youth of watching those like B films and watching the serials of those days, and then kind of like in the sense of the pulp comics and Flash Gordon movies. So that was their nostalgia, them doing that film. And it's similar to things like today, like Stranger Things and some of the better done nostalgia of our youth of being able to take something that we grew up with it and not just like photocopy it, but use it as inspiration to create something new. And so when we talk about it, about what they had, we got to remember that they were inspired by what they saw as kids and also from films. For instance, there's a lot of Lawrence of Arabia in this film, a lot of it.
Mhm.
So it's clearly like the greats stood on the shoulders of the greats before them. And
Right.
with that's kind of the new impression that I have of this film that I watch maybe once every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I try to watch it as much as I can too, for those reasons. It's funny that you bring up how filmmakers always revert back to their childhood and kind of bring in what was nostalgic or what is nostalgic for them in their art. Could any of you give an example of, I guess, a few things that you would take from your childhood and just kind of put it into your art? I mean, like George Lucas and Steven Spielberg did for their films.
For sure, we'll get to that. But before, me and Naomi are gonna give our first impressions.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Isaac, isn't what your first impression?
Yeah, Steve, we already know you're gonna hate on this. 'Cause
You want
there's no
Naomi?
Latinos in it, so we can skip
You want
you.
Naomi?
Oh, no,
so
I just needed like a sec. Yeah, go ahead.
Naomi, first impression.
I had the chance to see this a couple of times when I was younger. Don't recall if I've seen all the Indiana Jones, but Raiders of the Lost Ark is a memorable one. Also fan of also a huge fan of the Disney ride, and that's why this one is the most memorable one because of the ball hitting. Anyways, but as of today, I have a different outlook. And based on our conversations and all this other stuff we've been talking about, I admire and see things differently, but I'm impressed on how beautiful this movie holds itself. And I'm a big fan of the cinematography, the costume design behind it, the editing, the music, storyline is original. Surprised that young Alfred Molina was rocking his unibrow, and I feel like I watched this for the first time in a while. Just there you go.
Okie dokie, I'll jump on my first impressions. First impressions. First of all, there's a Disney ride, like an actual ride.
Yeah, it's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
But the waits are so long, I shit you not, you kind of forget which ride you're going on.
Okay.
If we're talking rides, I hadn't been at Disneyland since I was a little kid when we would visit from Paraguay. And then I had a Paraguayan friend and she made me go. And they didn't have the Indiana Jones ride when I was little. And oh my God, when I went a few years ago as an adult, it's the best ride in Disney. And this is before they opened the Star Wars thing and
Yeah.
whatever they're doing
Yeah.
with the Avengers, blah, 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 blah. The Indiana Jones ride is the most marvelous thing in Disneyland,
It's a good
according to Dino.
Okay, now jumping back to my first impressions after that Dino sidebar. Um, I basically, this is ironically my first time watching this movie. But this movie was actually like there were so many parts that I already knew it was going to happen. So the reason being is because that's why I asked if there's a Disney ride because I didn't know, but I know there's a Disney show in MGM in Orlando where they
Yep.
basically do the opening sequence, like basically the entire opening sequence. They do it on the show. They do another one in the middle, and then they do the very last scene with the airplanes and the whole deal. The only thing is, I didn't know it was the Nazis because in the show there was no Nazi flags or anything for sure.
That
Really?
would be crazy.
And but yeah, and then for some reason, the moment this didn't happen in the show, but for some reason I knew. Maybe it was a meme I saw, maybe it's videos I don't know, or maybe it's been parodied so much. But the guy that looks very like weird, that's trying to burn the lady at the beginning.
Yeah.
The moment I saw his face on screen, I'm like, his face is gonna get melted. I don't know when, but at some point, his face is gonna just melt. And it's weird because I never seen this movie before. But the other parts, I knew them because of the show. It kind of gave those away because when I went as a kid to Disney World, to MGM Studios and stuff, they kind of like it's kind of like nostalgia stuff. So they're just kind of reliving the movie over and over again, and that's how I knew certain things. Man, the music is just iconic. That's a huge standout. Everything that has to do with John Williams, like is huge in my book, and it really makes a great film. Like a great score makes a really great film. Those are my first impressions. Really good movie.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. You both touched up on pretty interesting things. Naomi, you said that it was like watching the movie for the first time.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I think that's what great movies do to us. A lot of replay value. And Steve, could you have seen like those images maybe like on other TV shows or parodied? Is that how you might have known?
Probably, I don't know, Robot Chicken or Family. I don't know. I really don't know where I would seen it, but maybe it's. But I just the moment that dude like popped it there, I was like, his face is gonna melt at some point. So
Right. Yeah, that's what's cool about it.
I think Rugrats segment.
Oh yeah.
When Tommy was like running or something.
Yep.
Yeah, he was. That was part of it. Yeah, I remember getting a
Simpsons.
Burger King
Bart.
toy, and he had an Indiana Jones little whip. Anyways, do go on.
Yeah, it's been redone a bunch. Video games, and not just like Indiana Jones video games, but other video games take from.
I
different
feel like
scenes.
there wasn't a show between 85 and 2005 that didn't parody Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like,
Yeah,
In some
I feel like,
form or another, yeah.
everybody had their crack at it.
and I imagine even the Goldbergs. That TV show is like just full on '80s nostalgia run, right? On ABC or something like that.
Mhm.
And they're always doing bits from old pop culture movies and stuff like that.
Mhm. Do you guys think that's a problem that Hollywood has right now? Is that they're just recycling everything but like
No,
you
I
mentioned
think
before,
I
There's
think
a
it's
difference
absolutely
between
awesome.
I mean,
I wish they would do more of it.
No, I'm not even kidding. I think it's awesome. I believe in squeezing the lemon for all that it's worth.
They're
You
trying
go,
to connect
Hollywood.
to a lot of audiences. They just trying to like try to blend in with audiences when they do that. Like they want to pick people to carry on and watch this because it's something they fan them.
well, and there's a difference between like parodying something and like actually straight up copying it. You know, like I feel like every time you see a creator like take something and make a reference to it in their work, it's kind of them saying how much they appreciated and loved that thing versus like when Disney decides to make like another live version of something that doesn't
Like,
need to
what-
be made into something.
One is an homage, and that film has earned that homage, as opposed to money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're gonna do this because of money. No one really asked for it. We're gonna fucking pay to watch it.
But no, like I feel like this is something that Hollywood has always done in some regard. You know,
Yeah, I feel like they're just a little bit more blatant about it.
well, because now everybody's looking for Easter eggs. That's what like they've turned it into a game where once upon a time it used to just be a way for filmmakers to be like, thank you for giving me this gift that I can layer upon this.
I think also in our time, we have everything at our fingertips. So it's not like, oh, I remember watching this movie when it first came out in films. That was a thing. Like when you hear, especially older interviews with Spielberg, Scorsese, Brian De Palma, George Lucas, they were making all these movies. Like Scarface was already a remake from like a black and white movie from the day, and it's something that they would see only randomly playing at tiny little cinemas, maybe like a really bad print. It was similar with Akira Kurosawa samurai films that they would maybe see in a blue moon because they were playing in just like, you know, it's not like we can look it up at any moment that we want, or even we were able to pick it up at a VHS and stuff like that. So historically, people have been redoing the same things over and over again, but it was because you maybe had the chance to see it once, and then that was it. You didn't see it again, right? Like, and so now it's like it just feels so overwhelming because it's like, why are you remaking this when I can see it right now? I can rewatch Willy Wonka right now. You don't need. I have the VHS. I don't need a Johnny Depp version. And now they're bringing out like an animated version, and it's like I don't need it, right? But it's not for us to decide, but future generations.
Well, and I mean, I also get like the whole idea of like a generation putting its own twists on it too. You know, I definitely think there is some value in that because not only does that, it kind of shows you how we've evolved culturally, you know, which is why I think it's always interesting when people do that. But also,
I mean,
there is a line. Like, you can always tell when it's like an interesting revamp versus like them literally just doing same shot for shot, same thing. know?
I think it's an interesting concept because most people get really upset with the ongoing Hollywood sequels, and I'm kind of in your camp, Michaela, because why not let another generation do the same thing with the same, or do their thing with the same IP? I mean, isn't that what like Bond movies are, 007 movies? Why can't there be 5 Indiana Jones? You know what I mean? Why can't there be a bunch of Dirty Harrys or whatever? Like,
Okay, so that's serialized though,
yeah,
right?
but why
And
not?
so there's another Indiana Jones movie coming out with the same indie, only extremely old. So with James Bond, they kind of passed the torch,
Well, that's
right?
what I'm saying. Why not pass the torch?
Well, they
Yeah,
tried that with
you're just
Smart.
Shia LaBeouf.
Doctor Who does it.
Are they
Right,
gonna
Doctor
put Harrison
did it.
Ford in an urn?
Taika Waititi did it.
Right. The Doctor Who just worked kind of by accident because the actor actually died, and then they had the idea because one of the writers had been tripping LSD, and he was like, "Oh, reincarnation," and the actor died, and I was like, "We'll just do the trip that I had," and
Brilliant.
it
And
worked.
so you got a show for 50 years.
Yeah.
Why not just do a thing for 50 years?
So what I'm getting is we should do LSD with Harrison Ford, and see what we
I'd
come
like
up
to
with.
see him in person. He's
But see, I feel like that. But see, that's what Philip K. Dick did, and that's how we got Blade Runner.
What he do?
Well, Harrison plus LSD equals Philip K. Dick.
Oh, okay. I
The
got
guy
it.
who wrote Blade Runner.
Philip K. Dick. That makes a lot of no. I'm on board. Now that you gave me the reference, Philip K. Dick. He was a robot. He was a cyborg, right?
Something, because like if you've read his later stuff, like Valis is like one of the weirdest mind melting things I've ever tried to comprehend.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, no, it's crazy. It's literally a guy who's like, I'm reincarnated as Jesus, but I'm not. So I'm in Rome, but I'm in the present time, and there's hippies.
Okay.
That's what Valis is.
I'm sure HBO Max is gonna make a fucking show out of
I
it.
gotta
You know what I
explore
mean?
this world, baby.
Yeah.
Do it.
Oh yeah, no, like he's fun, but honestly, like even like John Williams reused a whole bunch of stuff too. Like, tell me that
Yeah.
Marian's music did not sound like Princess.
I think he's known for doing that. Like I think a lot of scores, what is composers, they kind of recycled it. Like John Horner, Titanic. His music sounds a lot like all his other work too.
Like, but like I'm not talking just like a signature. Like it literally has the da 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 da.
Yeah, it was
That whole progression.
Yeah, it was crazy because like that's why I brought up in the beginning, like, and we almost had the same reaction like in the bar scene where it first comes up, because that it mixes into what is the Indiana Jones score in the film, but it's so distinct that it seems so weird and out of place. And like the first thing I couldn't help but think Star Wars. And that theme is used at least 3 times in the movie, and one more time near the end. And I was like, there it is. There's the Star Wars again. But yeah, no, it's great because I don't know why I never caught that before. Like, because it's so, oh my
Because
goodness.
it was the boring romantic parts.
It was
No
the
one wanted to
boring-
watch
Whoa.
the boring romantic parts.
Music wise, you can see it kind of also a period of times, right? Like Ennio Morricone, right? In the 60s, and you can almost see when these musicians, these composers are sometimes experimenting with new technologies or new ways of synthesizers or whatever that were just coming into the scene. What I really noticed this time with the music was definitely the minute they brought up the arc, the arc has its own theme song, and it's just like small little overtones of it every time it's mentioned, and every time, and it just gets bigger and louder, and then when you first see it, and it just kind of keeps bringing in, and so I really noticed that was definitely involved in it. And I do know the Indiana Jones theme because I remember I was telling also Jason that we watched all the making ofs. We even had like books on like movie magic and stuff like that, and they talked about Indiana Jones. But on the Indiana Jones theme, John Williams like played Spielberg like that dun 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 dun, and then he played something else, and he was like, "Which one do you like better?" And Spielberg was, "I like them both. Why don't you mix them?" And so John Williams mixed, and it just ended up being the whole theme itself, and it was John Williams mixing 2 different like theme songs for Indy, and it became one. That's a fun fact.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
But that makes sense why it's like so long compared to like all the other like theme songs that we would know. Because Star Wars, all you would have to do is da 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 da, and that's all you would hum. But with like Indiana Jones, you have to do the da 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 da. Da, 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 da. You have to keep going in order for people to get the full effect. That's so funny. Like, it's just interesting too how good he is at coming up with like those simple melodies that just stick in your brain.
Did he also do Bum?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, it does, yeah.
He did. He did.
Sticking to someone's brain. My dad knew immediately that I was watching Indiana Jones. He was like, "You watching Indiana Jones?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am." He's like, "I know the music," and I'm like, "No fucking way!" And I was just impressed, and he really sat down and we watched it together. And I was
That's
like,
great.
okay.
That's great.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Funny.
It just sounds like someone. I could just see, Naomi's there, and then the dad's like, Naomi, ¿estás viendo Indiana Jones?
And that's how
¡Órale! Vamos a ver Indiana Jones. ¿Te acuerdas cuando era una
That's
nenita? Estábamos viendo.
and that's actually what you listen, like you hear in the waiting line when you're on the ride. So I was like very in tune to it. I'm like it felt very nostalgic. I felt like I was riding the Disneyland ride every fucking time that fucking theme song kept playing over and over.
Yeah, definitely for sure.
Oh man.
That freaking song, man. That song is like part of the soundtrack of the 80s.
Yeah, definitely. What did you guys think of Indiana Jones as a character? Like, he gets beaten up. He's not perfect. Whereas most heroes or movie characters today would just like mow right through all the bad guys. Like, he really had to earn his victories. What did you guys think of him as a character?
He's a horny bastard who fucked his students.
No, like he's very typical of like what an American culture wants as a hero.
Yeah.
You know, like even the fact that he's an archaeologist is very manifest destiny, if you catch my vibes.
Yeah, because like he's so not only is he charismatic and like such a man's man, but he's smart
Mhm.
and love intelligence. So it's like I get both. I get a man to beat up other men for me, and the motherfucker reads.
Yeah. Funny how that works.
No, it's great because like it's so funny because like Harrison Ford himself, just as the actor, he's just so great and charismatic. Like anything he does is just almost gold, and so it's basically him in a fedora, and it's just he's great. It's also I'm glad that like the movie was smart enough to give him at least one weakness. Like such a ass thing. Like he'll beat up huge Nazis twice the size of him. He'll light a fucking plane and a truck on fire. He'll drag himself through the road. He'll swat all the tarantulas in the world. But as soon as you give him a reptile with no fucking legs, kryptonite.
No, but he still dealt with it.
Yeah, but like just like any other normal person, where it's like everyone has that one weakness, and like a snake, he's so vocal about it. It's like, I hate snakes, Jock. I hate them.
I mean, depending on the size of the snake, right? I don't know about but if there's some motherfucking anaconda, I'll be fucking flipping the fuck out.
I honestly think about the whole snake thing. They should have dealt a little bit more with that trauma, because he just went like, okay, the snakes are coming from there. We're going directly there.
Boys, yo, Des, I got a thing to tell you. So there's this third movie, right?
Yeah.
Go snakes on
So I
the
was
plane.
gonna. What do you?
No, they explore Indiana's fear of snakes in the later movies. I was just fucking.
But as good as this film also sets up things early on, and it has great callbacks throughout the whole film. From like just the snake thing to like you gotta pick better friends to like everything is repeated. It's like it's poetry, and they do that in all three of the first films. And just going back to Indy as a character and what we talked about it of just like that first 10, 12 minutes, the introduction of a character is like a masterclass of how you want to introduce your main character. Like you learn so much from that from the moment. And Alfred Molina being there, like he was us. Like having Alfred Molina there reacting just elevated everything. Like if you just saw Indy himself do the sand thing or kind of check the floor for the darts, it's okay. Like he might show a little bit, but having someone else that's kind of like equally or even more scared of the things or superstitious just adds so much more, just not just to the story, but to the character. And then maybe the first time I realized it was yesterday that we talked also about superheroes and how we see Indy like in his get out with a hat, the whip, the gun, all that, and then he goes to be a teacher and he's Clark Kent and Superman. Because like in the real world, he's got a little suit, a tie, and glasses, and you wouldn't expect him to be someone that would just be jumping out of any out of plane or swimming to get in onto a submarine and all that. So yeah, legit superhero that predates the Marvel universe.
I agree. I agree. Indiana Jones is an unstoppable adventurer, a hero without a cape.
Also, like he does all of this, all this badassery to give his day job more knickknacks.
Patty wags. Yeah, my dog got bound. I'm sorry. Too many nursery rhymes with the nieces,
Now he's no longer cool of like this belongs in a museum because it should belong with the actual cultures or tribes that they came from. But other than that, he's a pretty cool cat.
What would you guys say causes this movie to stand out from? Like, what would you say makes it great? Any pointers that would help other filmmakers kind of make their films stand the test of time?
Well, for as much as flash and bang that goes on in this film, it's really simple. It's a very simple story. And I think that's what makes it so endearing. That's what makes an Indiana Jones movie an Indiana Jones movie. That there's something to be found. He's going to go look and find it. He's going to have someone betray him whom you don't think is going to betray it. Like they stick to that story and they make sure that they give you enough detail, like just enough so you can kind of guess it too. And I think that the fact that they managed to keep it as pared back as they did instead of overcomplicating with details is what makes it so it's clean. It's what happened. That's what it's a clean story.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I would agree with that 1000%. The story is super clean. It's direct. I said it in my first impression that this movie doesn't waste a lot. There's not a lot of fat to trim off the edges of this thing. We all know like some of the scenes were even cut down in the movie to make the movie, not to make it shorter, but just to make the movie run smoother. And like, there's not even a bad real cut in this movie, to be honest with you. Like everything is like got so much purpose to it, which like elevates the stakes, brings the movie in under time. So the things that stick out to me that makes this movie great, Isaac, which I think is a great question. Right off the rip, the music is iconic, just wonderful music. The cinematography is really good, and the lighting is really good. So good, in fact, you don't even really notice it. That's how good it is. Just makes the story go where it needs to be. Everything is the exact color it needs to be, you know, for where they're at and stuff. Uh,
The practical effects.
yeah, like just the practical effects of it. Just it's all there, and it's like clean is really the best word to describe it. Like costumes, clean. Everything is just like we're building this superhero like consciously. They know they're doing it. You know, it's like we know we're gonna make tons of movies with this guy.
Well, I think it was also, if I'm not mistaken, a little bit. Someone brought up James Bond also. Like they wanted an American version of a James Bond.
Well, they
And-
absolutely nail it because
Yeah.
that's what I feel this is. It's a serial, you know,
Right.
and they can go on with this thing. And they tried to like bring Shia LaBeouf in for a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit,
yeah.
but to the point of what makes this one great. And then the acting is really good. You know, they picked the perfect actor for this. He wasn't even the first choice. The first choice was Tom Selleck, and he turned it down to do Magnum PI.
Well, they wouldn't let him shave his mustache. Is what it was.
Very-
That's literally it. And Magnum PI wouldn't let him shave his mustache.
So I mean, you got a great actor. He's a flawed guy. You don't really think about someone really being flawed as a hero, but he has this flaw, like that he kind of did this student wrong. You know what I mean? And he
Yeah.
like has to sort of atone for that in the story. It makes it like not a perfect guy. You know.
And he doesn't. He almost like never really wins for being the strongest man, right?
No,
Like
he's just kinda-
he always he's a scrapper. Right.
He's very scrappy. Every moment's like gotta survive to get to the next moment. You know.
Smart and
He's
witty.
got more heart, basically. I was also gonna say you can't go wrong with the bad guys in these first 3 Indiana Jones movies.
You can't.
Well, the second one not really, but you can't go wrong with having the Nazis of the bad guy or the villain in movies. Like that's someone that like 99% of the world kind of agrees on or used to. I don't know where we're at right now.
99.
Thought about
Yeah.
what makes this movie great. The last element is the actual acting, right? All the actors from top to bottom do their jobs. They do their jobs, and there's no mistaking who's who in every single frame. Like we know this is the sidekick, we know this is the ingenue, we know this is the bad guys. You know, we know just by looking at them, we know. And so yeah, all the actors are just playing their parts. No one's like mugging for the camera and all that kind of stuff. Spielberg just sort of does it for them. So great directing, and this movie like it has just all the side effects to be a great film. It's just all there subtly. Nothing's in your face, but it's all subtly there.
Mhm.
And real quick, just to add with that, I think just the James Bond, just one final thing is the structure. Those James Bond movies always kind of started with James Bond like at the end of a mission, and then he's back at like home base, and then he goes back on another mission, right? And Raiders, you start with him trying to get that idol, you know, it messes up, things get out of control, he's back at home base, then he picks up another mission. He goes. So it's like the structure is there, and it's a true and tried structure. Is that what true and tried? It works.
Tried and
So-
true.
Potato, potato.
What about you, Naomi?
Wait, what was the question?
What do you think makes this movie stand out from all the others and just gives it its place as an iconic movie?
I don't know. Everything about it, just the Steven Spielberg name underneath it, you know. How articulate it is within its editing and all that. It's just the Spielberg name, you know, just makes it strong and unique.
Yeah, I agree. It's very. Sorry, what?
That's my point of view.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you and Jason. And Dino. It's very much a Steven Spielberg film. And the editing is just so nicely paced. It's like accessible. You could watch it anytime, really. And for me, I know that I love the visuals and like the acting. All like I think that's what makes it stand above the rest because everybody's just like in their A game. I think a
I
lot
was
of
also noticing a lot about the frames within it. It was like watching and like walking through a museum,
yes,
like an exhibit. So I was like, hey, this could be an exhibit within its own movie, you know.
yeah,
So
that's
every
what I'm
shot
watching.
was shot very perfectly. The cinematography was great, like in the sense of, you know, silhouettes, the color
Mhm.
within, the composure. It was that, I guess, is something that sounds out to me the most as I watched this time around. And I admired it even more, actually, because I never knew what this movie held that kind of, you know, shit I like, you know. I just knew that Indiana Jones was this adventurous guy and he was unstoppable, and now I see a different outlook. Like the direction of the photography was just like perfect. You know what I mean? Like editing wise, the intro, how it just took us to like South America, like everything about it, like the angles. It was very good setting. It was a good set story. I don't know how you call it.
Yeah,
And plus, I'm kind of tipsy. Era dura.
no, that's good. That's good that you bring that up because when I was a kid, I'd always see like the genres at the video store, and it would say action adventure. But like now or ever since, like I don't really see adventure movies. But like it's very much a globe-trotting movie, and that's adventure to me. Like that's how I identify it. So that's really cool that you pointed that out. Like that's like an adventure movie. Like it's the definition of
Yeah.
it.
I like adventure movies like that have a continuous story. It's like Pirates of the Caribbean, que sigue la
Right.
historia con otra cosa, or like 007, it leads the story to something else. You know, those continuous, you know, shows
Yeah.
or movies or storylines or however you call it.
Right. Yeah. It's on its genre. So
Yeah.
very cool. How about you, Steve? What do you think? Like as an iconic movie, like what makes it iconic?
Uh, wow,
Oh,
I had it and I lost it. Uh, but
You need the staff of Raw to find it again.
right.
yeah, uh, I would say what makes this movie iconic, like I said originally, the music for sure, because it's like that. Like you hear that sound, and it's like okay, Indiana Jones. Like your brain automatically goes to that. So that's a big one. The whole whip thing and the fedora, it's iconic. There was even one shot that honestly I was like, wow, that was a great shot. That it was like Harrison Ford was talking to his nemesis, and they were shooting him. They were shooting Harrison from the side, so he looked like very dark. And I thought that was an amazing shot. I was like, wow. So the cinematography, it's amazing. And again, Hollywood just has this thing, and they've been had it for decades and years because they're Jojo Rabbit and other things. That is like, if you have a movie and you're punching Nazis, it makes it iconic. So
Yeah.
there we go. That's another.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, so should we get into our final thoughts?
Do it.
Okay. Michaela and JP, what are your final thoughts?
I mean, this movie is what makes people fall in love with Hollywood. You know, there is this sense of almost romance about this film, just because it is very like beautifully simplistic, and it's a story that anyone could just come in at any moment in time and understand and get enthralled over. So yeah, like there's a reason why this has like the place it does in pop culture.
True. It's absolute fun, and I think it's funny because like for me what made the movie iconic, and yes, it's everything that we all said, but I think it for sure has to be Harrison. Like I'm sure if it was Tom Selleck, I don't think this movie would be as memorable as it is today. Like, not at all. That's why in the next two movies, like the name of the films were Indiana Jones and, they didn't say after the first Star Wars, they didn't say Luke Skywalker and. No, it was fucking Star Wars. It's fucking Star Wars. But Indiana Jones, like, nah, the movie's fucking Harrison though. It's him. We're not gonna call it Hot Archaeologist Finds This, Harry Potter and the Chamber of This. No, it's Indiana. It's Indiana. And like Harrison is the reason why this movie is as great as it is. Because as great as Spielberg is and as great as George is, they both have a couple of stinkers. If it wasn't for Harrison, this might have been a stinker.
100% agree with you.
That's my hot take. And the deaths.
Oh yeah, very creative. Jason, what do you think? What are your final thoughts?
Well, my final thought is the object of desire of this movie, Least We Forget, is the Ark of the Covenant. So you automatically introduce a historical artifact that is important, one, to like the Jewish faith, and then also important to like humanity in an aspect. So it kind of brings a worldwide audience into it. You know what I mean? Because it's like this cultural and even religious symbol that he puts into the movie based on his culture, even, right? So it's kind of even a love letter to that a little bit that makes this thing special and very memorable, right? Just as a talking point, really. So that's sort of amazing. And this thing is a cultural phenomenon for a reason, and it's as American as America could be. The freaking character's name is Indiana Jones. Like that's American.
You named yourself after the dog. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, it's just a badass name to have. Like that dude means business if his name is Indiana Jones. He's been some places and he's seen some things, and that's why this guy lives in our hearts forever, man. He's as big as the icon in America as James Dean and Marilyn Monroe and whatever else you want to think of as far as like Elvis. You know what I mean? Indiana Jones is huge. So yeah, I mean, I can name names all night, but I'm not gonna. But that's my final thought on this movie, man. This one never gets old, and it's gonna be one that I'm sure I will show my kids in the future. And obviously, this is one that I could, if you haven't seen it, I would recommend it to anyone who's ever lived.
Yeah.
Are you alive?
Anyone who's ever lived. Once you get to the age of, I would say 12, I would feel comfortable showing this to my kids.
12.
Yeah, 12, they can see this. I would feel comfortable, like, yeah, there you go. Make what you will of it. But yeah, this is a movie for everyone, in my opinion, after the age of 12.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Dino, what are your final thoughts?
First, I would say I think after the age of 8, I would say 8. I would be comfortable with showing it if I'm in the room with them, right? Like as a with them. I think 8-year-old can take a lot from this film. Yeah, I mean, this was my childhood. I mean, this is up there with Rambo. This is up there with Rocky. This is up there with Terminator. But more so because of all those characters, and that's the other thing, right? And maybe that's why we connect so much with him. All those other characters are unobtainable, if that makes sense, right? Rocky, I mean, Rocky's a boxer break. He's still pretty beefy. Rambo, like all of them have actual like physical abilities that regular like Joe Schmo don't. But Indy really, it's just his smarts and his charisma and him just like not giving up. right? That's, I think, what makes everyone. What?
Oh, you know, his lean dad bod.
Oh yeah. Sure,
Yeah,
and that,
like
right?
they say,
Like,
he's scrappy. He doesn't need to be a muscle man.
he scars very nicely. Might be another scar bud. But yeah, so like he is someone that I think a lot of people can relate, right? Because again, he doesn't do everything right the first time. Like he usually messes up before he gets it right. And yeah, I grew up. We had the hats, the whips. Whenever I would go on fishing trips, we'd pretend to be Indiana Jones and jump around. And man, how many times are we trying to like whip a branch or something to actually be able to like hold on to it, and it doesn't really work. Or if it works, you can't just undo it like that. God. Anyway, so love the film. Love the. What was that? What was that? Was that a hyena?
You got me cracking up. That's all I gotta say.
Okay. All right. I'm glad. So yeah, I grew up watching it. Again, definitely. I will say, I'll bring it up again. My brother, when we were little, he thought the second one was the best. But I was like, the third one, I enjoyed the third one more because they had James Bond in it as well. Talk about a crossover.
Yeah.
But my brother really liked the second one because he was like, it's scarier, it's more dark and all that. He's changed his tune now, and apparently everyone hates the second one, which I'm like, they're Indiana Jones movies. What can you do, right?
Yeah.
They can all be hits, but it's not like terrible. Anyway, digressing, I love it. Indiana Jones. I love the video games. We didn't even touch about that. The ride at Disneyland is like chef's kiss, Salt Bay, just like amazing. I would go and just stand in line for Indiana Jones ride and a Toad's ride. Those are the only two things I would do at Disneyland if I were to go back again. So I would recommend it to everyone and anyone that I know, including Nazis. Maybe they'll come around if they watch the movie.
Yeah, that's great. Naomi, what are your final thoughts?
I'm a huge fan of the crew behind this movie. Because after each of them went to do huge things, you see them in iconic culture things. They did splendid shit after or they've done splendid shit. But it's like this whole network of people working together. Anyways, that's like my main reason as to why I like this film. Because everyone within who crewed around it did amazing fucking shit. Anyways, Indiana Jones' stories are original. I enjoy the character, how adventurous he is. And como he feels motherfucking unstoppable. And I think I mentioned this earlier. But something my dad had mentioned, that this movie at the time was highlighting the shit that white people were doing at that era, which is something we probably didn't touch about, but that's a little bit something someone said earlier too, que todos repetimos algo que miramos en nuestra juventud or whatever. So maybe someone saw what was happening within Nazis and whatever, y que crearon esta historia to highlight the other history that sometimes isn't highlighted in textbooks and shit like that. And the wardrobe also is amazing. I think that the lady that did the wardrobe did Coming to America after this, and I was fucking impressed on that intake too. So the crew period is the best. That's my final thought.
Yeah, totally, definitely.
And that was not scripted. That was me being uniquely me.
Good.
I think the F-bombs gave that away.
Wait, what?
I think the F bombs gave it away that it wasn't scripted.
Oh,
I'm glad. I'm glad.
Steve, what are your final thoughts?
Well, unlike Naomi, my final thoughts are actually scripted. So just give me 1 second so I can get them. Hold on. Okay, I got them right here. Good movie, would recommend. That's my final thought.
Awesome. My final thoughts are I'm really surprised, and I'm actually happy that all of you guys enjoyed it just as I have. I think all those everything that everybody brought up was exactly what makes it a great movie and why it's timeless. My film teacher, he once said that a movie that's special and that typically makes it is something that kind of shows what the like a window into the person's soul, like the director's soul or the filmmaker's soul. So I think that's very much what this did, in that it was just something simple and fun, and I think that's like the perfect recipe for something that's good, that'll be good, and a little touch of you in it, and you have a hit on your hand, as what I think. Yeah, that was Raiders of the Lost Ark, and that was everybody's opinion. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys enjoyed us talking about it. Steve, do you want to take it away?
Woo, 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 woo.
Whoa,
Jason.
whoa.
Well, Steve, before you take it away, I'd like to ask you a question.
Why? What's that question?
What do you got for us next week, Steve?
Next week, but what? Why you keep asking me, man? It's not my turn. It is. Wait. Before I announce the person that it is, this person has to pick a person related to the production or the cast of this movie that we just saw to pick the next movie, because we are doing this Inception thing, whatever. Because Isaac picked this movie originally because of the prop master. Now, by the way, one of my favorite props were the snakes, because there were a lot of prop snakes. I saw them. I was like, that's fake. That's not moving.
But allowing some real snakes as well.
That's true.
They were just lazy.
The next person, I hope that person's ready,
Let's-
is Naomi.
Naomi!
Yes, it's my turn. Empire of the Sun. Empire of the
Ooh.
Oh, wait! Oh, shit.
Okay, that is definitely not the one I thought it was gonna be.
Oh, okay. That first one, I was like, that didn't sound like, what is that? I got really excited in here right now.
Is this the same
Oh
one?
my god, we got trolled! We got punked, holy shit!
Can you put that first one again, Steve?
What was that? What the hell is this?
We are the people, we rule the world.
Is that fucking
like
like the fucking magicians from Las Vegas or
Oh, my
something?
God.
The one with the
I don't know what that
tiger.
is.
Is that a Siegfried and Roy movie?
Yes.
I thought that was Nick Kroll.
I thought that was legit!
Bro, that's legit. No, this is legit.
I know, man.
So I guess we gotta watch that one. All right, I'm excited.
That was a bonus movie.
Yeah.
Young Christian Bale.
This is the movie. No, but they're legit like artists. Like they have make music and they're called Empire of the Sun.
Oh. Do you recommend them, Steve?
I do. It's this really good music.
Okay.
Walking on a dream. How
Yeah, that's
can
what-
I explain?
That song, you put "Walking
Happened
on
to
a Dream"
myself.
while you're driving, bro.
Let me
Wait,
see it.
walking? You're telling me while I'm driving, I should be listening to "Walking" in a dream?
On a dream.
On a
Yeah.
dream.
My God.
All right.
Yeah, Dino, we do it different in America. For Dino, Jason Echoes, Naomi, Isaac, Michaela, JP, and Misty Dusty D. We catch you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye. Ciao. Ciao. Ciao.
Hey, I'm JP Cerno. Thank you for watching Oyedimo Network. Please click here for additional videos and don't forget to subscribe. That's our new theme song.